Don't tell me that it's this guy because he's the quote unquote chosen one.
He is.
Because here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with that logic. Because now we got to keep doing that.
They have.
We have to keep. No, we don't. Because the reason why we don't, because I saw that dude go 10 years without winning the league MVP.
Who?
James. So he's not the chosen one like that.
The only year James got outright robbed was 2011. From that point on, from 13,
you're not gonna like that.
Yeah, that's cool with me. He got robbed.
I've heard Dwight deserved that. I've heard LeBron deserved it.
Rose, yeah.
So how's that a robbery if I'm hearing three different answers?
14, Durant would legitimately win that MVP.
Yeah.
I won't argue that. KD.
Curry legitimately
It was
won
Curry
the
or
MVP.
Harden. It wasn't LeBron. It was Curry or Harden.
16, nobody was beating Steph Curry.
Yeah.
17,
nobody.
Russ or Harden. It wasn't LeBron.
Nobody.
Or Kawhi or Steph that year. All four of them had really
Steph was
good years.
disqualified because
of KD. And then KD got disqualified.
Yep.
And then in 17, 18, he wasn't beating Harden. Now you start
people say he should have won. That's
right.
The one where
but then now you get into 18, 19, 19, 20. 18, 19, I think Giannis run it out right. But then Harden had
James
it.
Harden.
But 19, 20 was LeBron and Giannis. But then Giannis
if COVID doesn't shut the season down, James wins the league MVP that year.
Maybe. I don't know.
I can see it.
But again, to be fair, they were experiencing a level of health that they have not, and since that point and up to that point, had not experienced for that Lakers team. So we don't know. We have no idea if the season was 82 games all the way through April that they all would have been there.
It was only a month left in the season. It wasn't like it was 2 or 3
March
months.
15th.
At that point, you saw the Bucks like dominating at a high level still alongside them. Like
the Bucks were the best team in the league.
Yeah, that year.
But the Lakers was on their way to winning 60 games that year.
In the regular
maybe
season.
At that point.
Yeah.
And he had outplayed Giannis. Remember that it was like maybe 2 weeks before.
In the match,
outplayed him.
That was a
But
big deal.
wait, hold on.
That was a huge
But you
deal.
can say 60, but that same year the Bucks were also on pace to win 60.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And he was in DPOY talks.
In both. Yeah.
And James was leading the league in assists.
I hear that.
25 and what? 10?
25.
That year?
Yes.
But Giannis was putting up. I don't know his numbers, and I can't bother.
I want to say it's like 30 and
it was like 29.
Yeah,
30,
and at the time,
and Giannis was playing like 31 minutes a game.
That's what I'm saying. He was doing all
like,
that
the Bucks were
limited minutes.
destroying teams.
Yeah.
So I think Giannis probably.
I think all of the advanced ratings would probably lean Giannis over
it was
LeBron
all Giannis. And then
that's true. Then which years? Okay, so the years that he did win it, because like you just mentioned,
they were deserved.
I think he should have won 5 straight.
So you think he should have won it in
9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All of those deserve.
I
all of
wouldn't
those.
argue with that. I wouldn't argue.
Okay.
I'd argue 1, but you know why. Other than that, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't push back.
There have been 2 true Make-A-Wish MVPs in the last 15 years.
Make-A-Wish MVP.
2023 and 2011.
2011.
And there were narratives. There were narratives why Rose won. And they were the first seed. He was 22 at the time. Everybody made a big deal about that.
It was all the top teams in the regular season.
Yeah, it was the SGA boost that he got last year. But actually, I'm saying he deserved it. But everybody said he was like, oh, he's so young. He's this and that.
Yeah, that's true.
The dude just came off a 21-year-old season and then went to town versus the Heat. Went to town, and then in the playoff had that crazy dunk versus Joel Anthony and all that other stuff. It went nuts. So like that's why it was like there was stuff that went into it. Like look at D Rose, number 1 seed in LeBron's conference.
Before the season started, him saying, "Why can't I be the MVP of the league?"
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
And at that point, everybody wanted to be somebody other than LeBron.
And plus, you got to think Swiper too. We talked about this before. Like LeBron, in that it's interesting. I was thinking LeBron is like an exception to the rule of super teams not being able to produce MVP or not being able to have players win MVPs.
Right.
Because Kevin Durant, when he went to the Warriors, Steph Curry's MVP and Kevin Durant's MVPs consideration was out the window. LeBron in 2011, that was where the Heat were arguably the most hated. Not arguably, they were the most hated team in all of basketball, right? From GMs to players to fans. So you knew that year, no matter what the Heat did, unless they went out there and won like maybe 69 games or something, or had the best record in basketball, then that argument would have been there. But for me, what separated Rose from that mix was Rose went out there with limited offensive help, besides what? Luol Deng and Carlos Boozer.
Did he average more points?
He was the only player on the Bulls. No. He was the only player on the Bulls to average over 20.
And then he was a definitively worse. He was only
player on the Bulls to average over 20
because their defense was great.
Yes,
their defense was great.
But he was also a definitively worse
Rose.
defender and offensive player than LeBron was that year.
Okay, cool, great. Why didn't
definitively
LeBron? Did the Heat have a better team than the Bulls?
That's not the point.
It's not the
Why didn't LeBron get the number 1 seed then? Why didn't the Heat win
Because the Bulls have
the number
best
1 record?
defense in this.
So this is my point.
And then
You
one
look at
play- and then
Rose,
one
that
shot maker.
regular season,
Right.
in that regular season, because this is once again regular season award.
He wasn't a better basketball player than LeBron James.
Derrick Rose was knocking down all of the top teams from the East and all of the top teams from the West, from Miami
they
to
won 60
Dallas.
games or
62 games.
62.
That's what Derrick Rose was doing as the lead and only reliable offensive option for the Chicago Bulls. So if you think that he didn't deserve to win it, cool. Listen, I'm not going to argue against LeBron. I'm with Swiper. He should have won at least 4 straight. But in 2011,
At least 5. You're only
That's
doing
what
it
we
because
do.
you're
Hold on,
Rose
right
fan.
quick, Swiper. ZZ cooking the lights out. Hey, Z, you know, you say somebody shooting the lights out. ZZ cooking the lights out.
sorry, bro. Like I'm just like Rose literally seeing Jeff Teague on his
But you
podcast
just said
saying
he wasn't a
motherfuckers
better
calling
player
out
than LeBron.
sick because they had to go up against Derrick
But
Rose.
it's easy. You just said he was not a better player than LeBron.
Swiper, how many times has an MVP won
No,
that
see, no,
wasn't the
that's not
best
what we're
player
doing.
in basketball?
The question was, which one of them? Could you ask me if we're doing it that way? Then why is the best player? Blah 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 blah. Which is and why LeBron should have won 9? He didn't win for a decade.
So if you take
I'm
Derrick
saying that
Rose
the
off of
only
the Bulls,
year
do they make the playoffs that year?
definitively he should have won was 11.
If you take Derrick Rose off of the Chicago Bulls, do they make the playoffs that
That's
year?
not that never works because you're saying that versus LeBron.
So if Derrick Rose is off the Chicago Bulls, who's their number 1 option on offense?
Shoot, I don't know. Rip
I can
Hamilton.
say the same
Keep
thing.
Boogie.
With LeBron, no, here's the thing. With LeBron, y'all not gonna do that. If you take LeBron off the Heat, they obviously
I'm
if you take him off the Heat, obviously they still have Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh to
Sure.
lean on. Now, granted, that Heat team in 2011, they ain't the same team as the 2013 Heat even.
Right.
But here's the thing, ZZ. Here's the thing. So when we're having conversations about this, the thing that you're going to run into when you're having conversations about LeBron and MVP stuff, people always say, if you take this player off, how good is said team? Blah blah blah. LeBron James was the most terrifying force in the league.
Mhm.
He was the best floor raiser in the league, and on top of that, like he was the best, I don't know, two-way player in 2011. You know, depending on whatever. But I just don't think you can make an actual argument and say that Derrick Rose earned it over LeBron, except for the fact that they had the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference that year. And again, going into the year, LeBron was the most hated player in the sport.
Yeah.
That's why he didn't win, because of the decision. Everybody wanted to see him lose after the
Derrick
decision.
Rose's fault.
But we can
He
understand
benefited
that.
from it.
But we
He should have
understand
stayed
the
his big
politics
ass
that
in
go into
Cleveland.
He
it.
benefited from it.
That's what we're saying. There's just
That's what I'm
politics
saying.
that go into
That's
it.
not
so-
Derrick Rose's fault, but like my problem with this too is like the thing that people have to remember, the reason why LeBron James can still win MVPs on very good teams is because the way that he performs on his team compared to his second best player, there's a bigger gap than that, because that's just how dominant of a player LeBron James is for the most part, outside of the, I would say, bubble run with Anthony Davis. That's probably like the closest it's been for people to say who the better player was, right? Even on the Heat, right? No one would say Wade was close to being better than
They
LeBron.
did in 2011.
Okay,
Well,
so
And that's the year
in
we
the
talking
playoffs.
about, right?
I'm talking about the regular season. Are you saying during the regular season?
Hold on. What? D Wade was balling that
No,
regular season.
no. I'm not saying
Balling. The gap for Derrick Rose and his second best player was not
No,
close
no,
That's what
to.
I'm saying.
It-
Like,
it was
what are
not
we
close.
talking
No, no.
about?
That's not my point, though.
That's what you started at.
No, because I'm focusing on MVPs, right?
Yeah.
Where if you team up with a very talented team and they deem it like this is a super team,
Yeah.
right? And normally that strips away your chances of winning the MVP, right? I'm saying I feel like LeBron is exempt from that because on his teams that are considered super teams to people,
He still has a gap.
he makes up a majority of that. Still.
Got you.
That's what I'm saying. Like here, right? Curry and KD, when they teamed up,
Mhm.
they were dominant as a collective, but
Yeah.
they were still close as players.
That
Right?
just started though.
What?
That stripping your
MVP
Oh,
consideration?
yeah, that stripping your MVP
That's
consideration,
recent.
that just started
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
got on bomb squads, because if you think about it in the past,
Moses won it.
right,
Yep.
when
Not right. Yeah.
when you were on bomb squads, that actually was the reason why you won the league MVP. If you
Right.
think about Bird won it, Moses won it,
Yeah.
Magic won it, Jordan won it, right? I mean, Olajuwon was the exception in 94 and in 93, 94. Jordan won it. Malone won it. When you're on bomb squads, when you think about in 2000 with Shaq, when he won it in 2001, Iverson was the exception. I think Tim Duncan
Garnett in 04.
may have been the exception.
Who's that
Garnett in 04.
07, Garnett, 07,
yeah,
third.
yeah. That's true,
Garnett
that's
in
true.
Garnett
08, Kobe.
there's few exceptions, but for the most part, you being on a bomb squad, that does actually help you being the league MVP. Now, when you're talking about what the league MVP actually is it the best player on the best team?
No.
Is it
No.
the best? That's what
Better
I'm
not
talking
be.
about. Is it the best? Is it
That's
the
the
best?
problem. It fluctuates.
It fluctuates.
is it the
That's
best
been
player?
my
Hold
issue
on,
with
but
the
the best player,
award.
the best
The reason
player
why
on
I'm
the
asking
best
you this,
team when they
Swiper.
won, though, was still like they were still apex like Malone. He was an apex player in the league.
I won't argue that. That part I
Right.
won't argue. But what I'm thinking about when I think about Derrick Rose, and I think about how valuable he was to that Chicago Bulls team,
Yes.
and then I think about what James was to the Miami Heat, and then I think about what Dwight Howard was to the Orlando Magic. The best defensive player in the game, not just the best defensive player in the game. That Eastern Conference, what it wasn't very good. I mean, it was going the other way. But Dwight Howard being as forceful and as dominant as he was a 20-10 guy, and he was limited offensively. But being the best defensive player in the game, being the paint presence that he was, and the fact that Orlando take him off that unit at that time, I think they're at the bottom of the East. Now, if you take Derrick Rose off of the Chicago Bulls with Luol Deng, with Carlos Boozer, are they at the bottom of the East?
Carlos Boozer was not the same Carlos Boozer.
He was an 18-10 guy.
Well, here's the thing with Carlos Boozer. Carlos Boozer, when he got to Chicago, compared to his role in Utah, two different things. Chicago ended up getting up off of Carlos Boozer because he was not able to fit into what they needed him to be as a big man. Because when you look at how great he was in Utah,
two-man game with him and Darren Williams.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. When you look at what he was in Utah, dominant, because him and Darren Williams was that two-man game. That was their go-to thing.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. Wasn't the same thing in Chicago.
Why not?
Because of Derrick Rose.
Running them DHOs.
Fellas, I got to step in.
Okay.